Hi, everybody, and welcome to Differential Discussions. I'm Melissa.
And I'm Dave.
And today we're going to look at a normal differential together. So I'm just going to scoot around the slide and identify cells with you. And we have one here, so I don't have to scoot very much right now.
Yeah, we got a very interesting cell, right? Our lymphocytes. Talking about like normal cells to me, it's like such it's like a shock. You're like talking about Luke's, yeah, and then you're like, yeah, it's a lymph, right? So characteristics of our lymphocyte, we have a high NC ratio, very clumped, round-ish nucleus, and what, blue cytoplasm?
Yep. And the shade of blue will vary depending on the lymph, depending on the patient, depending on the stain.
Right. Yeah.
The nucleus, if you have normocytic red cells, the nucleus will be about the same size as those normocytic red cells if it's a small round resting lymph like this guy is. So that's a good way to judge your size of your red cells. I think the other fun thing is that lymphs have nucleoli. We just don't generally see the nucleoli in peripheral blood smears, and then when you do, you're like, oh my gosh, nucleoli.
Yeah, and we're currently teaching AML, and so the nucleoli becomes kind of a teaching point, and at least from my perspective. And so now our students will begin to see, well, there's a lymph, and then you see like this guy, he's got kind of a small nucleoli there. And now we have to tease out normal from abnormal and things.
And then we have to talk about nucleoli and lymphs.
Yeah.
It's the challenging part. Yeah, I know. And just for those of you who aren't yet aware, AML is acute myelogenous leukemias. So leukemias have really challenging immature cells if you haven't done it yet. And even if you have done it, it's still challenging.
Yes. No, good. Thank you for the contextual statement. Yeah. Sometimes I just kind of.
We just spill the jargon and just go.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we'll try to catch each other.
Yeah.
So in terms of cells that a lymph could get confused with, I think the one that I think of is perhaps like monocytes. Monocytes might be something that we want to kind of distinguish it against, and hopefully we'll see one through our normal diff.
Hopefully we'll see one. Let's turn around and see what we can see. And for reference, we're on 100 oil.
Yes, oil. Yep. The appropriate objective for differentials. Certain circumstances, higher levels of training, an experienced microscopist might use 50, but 100. Don't cheat. And it looks like we got another lymph.
Yeah. And this one's really nice because look at, it's like right next to that normocytic red cell. So you've got like the two right next to one another. Let's see. Is it gonna, do I need to, oh yeah. So you got this, right? My drawing is horrible, I know. Right next to it, right? And you can see that they're basically, well, not by my drawing. Without my drawing, you can see that they're basically the same size, right? So that's how you can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice when the cells cooperate.
Oh, the other direction.
Beautiful. So this is the most common cell to encounter, the neutrophil.
Yep.
Describing the cell, how would you describe this?
So it's got pinpoint granules. They look more pinkish in color, although we know neutrophils have pink, light blue, and purpley colored granules, which just generally we see more of the pink. So we have that granulation, that it's pinpoint granules throughout the cytoplasm, and a normal neutrophil will have 3 to 5 lobes.
So yeah, that's depending on the nomenclature that someone may use, that someone might call it a polymorpho, no one says this anymore, right? But polymorphonuclear neutrophil or something like that. And that's just kind of lending to this lobes kind of segmentation of the nucleus.
And I just
pretty
outlined,
unique.
I just outlined that there's 4 here.
Yep. Yeah, so counting lobes will become important later on in your career. So yeah, that's a good point to bring up now.
Once you're past normals.
Yeah, once you're past like lymph and neutrophil.
Yeah. I think the other thing that's cool to point out here is this right here.
Yeah, no, it's a good opportunity. So there are times where there will be what we would call an inclusion, so things inside of red cells. And then this is not that. This is a platelet that happens to have landed on top of a red cell.
Yeah.
And so how do you distinguish that, Melissa?
I think one of the best ways is to look for that a white halo around the platelet. And it comes from think about having like a squishy, like 3D structure, like maybe like a water balloon that you haven't filled up quite so that it's really, really rigid. And then you think about putting something on top of it and pushing it down on top of it, because you're taking 3D structures and making it 2D. That's essentially going to push all of the liquid away from that area. And that's essentially what we've done here with the platelet, is we've squished the platelet on the red cell, pushed all the hemoglobin away from it, and it gives it that halo or clearing around the platelet.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very good. So look for the halo, see if that's there. Inclusions they'll be inside the red cell, right? So you won't have that displacement and you won't have that white halo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good teaching moment.
I think the color also helps too.
Yeah.
Because the other inclusions aren't really the same shade.
It's tough though, because like we'll say that and it is obvious to us, but
for now
it takes time.
It does, yeah.
If we had to like say how many smears we've looked at in our career so far, I mean, it's innumerable, right? It's just a big number. So
yeah, absolutely.
Experience.
If any of you have studied micro, TNTC is too numerous to count. Keep going. There's another cell over here.
Yay! Another neutrophil, characteristic lobes. Got that pink cytoplasm, purple granules.
Yeah. And do you want to take a moment and just talk about the chromatin pattern?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think a lot of students can kind of get by early on in heme when you're first learning, and chromatin pattern isn't as important, but it's a great thing to kind of start out with. So as a cell matures and makes all the enzymes and proteins and things that it needs for to do its job, whatever its role is, the chromatin pattern will go from a soft kind of loose pattern to condensed, right? The more I've already used my DNA, the more I don't need it, I'm going to store it away, right? And they store it by compacting it. And neutrophils are excellent for this. Lymphs also, right, have a really dense kind of chromatin pattern. So you might hear us talk about that. It's pretty important.
Absolutely. All right, let's put you back where you were. Keep rolling.
Yep, got a neutrophil and a lymph hanging out in a field together.
Yep.
I like this neutrophil too.
So just for clarity, this is the neutrophil.
Yes.
This is the lymph.
Could you guess why I like this neutrophil?
Why?
There appears to be a pale spot in the top corner of it.
Okay. I see. So he likes this right here, is what he's saying.
Yeah, and the cytoplasm's a bit naked there for whatever reason. I think it's probably more orientation and like just being kind of squished, sort of. But It's a nice visualization of cytoplasm without anything in it stained in red stain.
Yeah.
Just a note.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Now the lymph, and now that we brought up chromatin pattern, we're kind of looking at that nucleus, looking at the density, the dark, deep purple, consistent with a mature cell. Yep.
Another one. There was one right underneath it. Is that in the field? No. Right there.
Lymph.
Yeah. Another lymphy lymph. Oh, all right. I guess there's another one. Bring it back.
I like this one. Not a lot of cytoplasm for this fella.
Mm-hmm.
So we haven't come across a basophil yet. So one thing I've noticed with intro low-level students first learning is they might see a basophil, which we haven't seen yet in this particular video. But basophils they're packed full of purple granules. And I've seen some people make the mistake of a lymphocyte like this with scant cytoplasm, not much for cytoplasm, being confused with a basophil that's full of purple granules. But if we're thoughtful and we look carefully, we can see that slight blue kind of at the edges.
There's a little bit right here.
Yep.
Right there. And you can also see a little bit over here. And it looks like you can see a little teeny weeny bit around the edges right here. Now let me clear that for you and you can really take a look.
And a basophil will never, ever have a blue cytoplasm, ever.
There aren't many times we can say never, ever.
Yeah, it's very helpful when you can.
Let's see. Oh, I apologize. My dogs are singing.
Peripheral.
Yeah, this one's a nice one. So you can see it's got a few granules. One here and one right next to it.
Do you mean to say vacuoles?
Yep, vacuoles.
Vacuoles, yep. And so,
Yep.
This is a great moment because what do neutrophils do? Right? We have to think about form and function, right? We think about physiology. And this is a phagocytic cell. Its job is to eat stuff.
Yep.
And yeah, so you will see vacuoles and neutrophils.
Yep.
Sometimes, sorry.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of rare.
Depends on the patient.
Depends on, yeah, that's the other catch-all you'll hear from us. Depends on the patient.
I need a t-shirt that says depends on the patient. This one's actually nice. Small round resting lymph. It's a little bit larger than a lot of the other small round resting lymphs. He's in the field. This one's kind of nice because you can pretty clearly see where there's a little nucleoli right there.
Yep.
Starting to get thin, so I'm probably at the edge. So I'm
yeah, awesome.
Just move in further.
I actually got that question recently too. How do you know when you're getting, thin? So I think what Melissa saw was you see those white spaces, you see the red cells look kind of squished flat. Is that a way? Yeah. I don't know.
They don't have the central pallor as much as they do in the better areas.
Yep.
So then I know it's time to move on.
Yep. And she's being systematic about this because we don't want to just cherry pick fields when you're doing a normal differential. We may at some point decide to cherry pick, but that'll be just for teaching and morphology.
Or, yeah, showcasing. But just like I drew the other day, or in the other, what was it? It was
Yeah,
on,
we did was that a normal
I think
white
it was
cells?
the how to find good fields, probably, where I drew it there. If you have a
That
slide,
might be right.
like this, I'll draw it again, and then you blot your blood, and then you make your smear, and it looks like this, right? With this being your feathered edge here, right? This is feathery. You're going to start a little bit further in from your feathered edge because you're too thin, right? And so you're just going to kind of go like this, up, and then you're going to move one field over and go back the other direction. Move one field over and go back in that other direction. One field over and back, and you do that until you get to 100.
I'm very impressed with that drawing. That was that was a good one.
Getting better.
Drawing with like the pad on the mouse pad, that's tough.
It's challenging. All right, let's keep looking for. Oh, these are 2 lymphs, by the way. We just ignored them.
2 lymphs. Lymph.
So we said in the beginning that this slide is a normal slide.
Ooh.
Let me pull him in the center a little bit more.
Uh-huh. Talk about uncooperative too. So I think I see, it's difficult, but I think I see a U shape to the nucleus. Do you see that? Or am I?
I do see it, but I wonder if that's just like right here.
Yeah.
I think it's all one piece though.
Woof, woof, woof. So this is a tricky call. I mean, I don't think there's any way to kind of get around it. This part of me is thinking like mono, but I could see someone arguing lymph as well.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's a challenging one. I don't think like the U, I think that's all one piece. I just think that's the way the chromatin fell. I don't think it's actually a U here. And like this is one piece and that's another piece. I don't think that they're 2 separate pieces.
The other thing too, look at the color of the cytoplasm in the far right.
Yeah.
That's going to be probably most important here, at least in my mind. Yeah.
This over here is what we're referring to now. Is this?
So this is funny because like initially I'm like, hey, maybe this is a mono, right? And then all of a sudden it starts talking me out of it.
Absolutely. I think it's more of a lymph.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite a reactive lymph though. I think reactive lymphs generally look angry. He looks annoyed. Because the dark blue cytoplasm makes him look annoyed over here, but he doesn't look quite angry yet. He looks more reactive. You'll notice that I like to make cells emote. They give us emotions. But I also think there's a nucleoli.
I think we started a bit there.
Oh, did we? I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I think we're all caught up now.
There's a nucleoli here.
But this has some cool features to it. The thing I think that pushed me away from mono once I kind of reflected on it was the differential in color. The fact that it's deeper blue there, lighter blue on the left. Monos just really don't do that very often.
They don't.
Also, I opened looking at a lymph and commenting on nuclear cytoplasm ratio. This is a heavy nucleus to cytoplasm ratio.
Yeah.
Also owing itself to being a lymph.
Very true. All right, lymph then. Let's see if we can find a mono or something else.
Cool. Yeah, you can make a seasick. Lymph.
Lymph.
with a weird little cytoplasm finger, kind of.
Yeah, that's all right. It's got a little cytoplasmic bleb.
Mhm.
Bleb is a real word, by the way.
It is.
It's a real scientific word. You know what's interesting though is this is a normal slide, but it's mostly lymphocytes.
Yeah. And wasn't it weird? Before we started recording, I was like, oh, what if we just get lymph?
Yeah, but that's okay. When normally would we see more lymphs than in a normal population, not abnormally? Because abnormally, when are we going to see an increase in lymphs?
Yeah, abnormally, we may see an increase in lymphs and of some kind of viral infection.
Yeah, viral
and maybe infections generally, yeah. I suppose. But yeah, I see what you're getting at. Yes. So pediatric patients very frequently have this lymphocytosis relative to the neutrophils. I should stop talking like this. They have a lot more lymphs than they do neutrophils.
Yeah, they do, particularly babies.
Yes.
Babies are generally born. I mean, these lymphs are very mature, so they don't look like baby lymphs. And we can do another video and show baby lymphs so that you can see, because baby lymphs are really soft and immature looking.
And baby red cells, right? So babies are almost aliens when it comes to looking at the peripheral smears.
Yeah, their peripheral blood smears, they are almost alien.
Yeah, another one, lymph.
Yep.
But yeah, there's something in the transition from like childhood into like preteen, right, where they start to look more like regular. They start to look more like adult. Yeah.
Yes. I'm still just pausing on the lymphs so that folks can see the different morphological variations in lymphs, because they always look different, even between in the same patient, lymph to lymph to lymph to lymph.
Yep. And that's owing itself to a point you made in another video, I believe, of that the heterogeneity of function of lymphs.
Yep, absolutely.
They have lots of different jobs, lots of different subtypes.
Oh, there's another lymph.
It's lymphtastic.
All right, well, oh, there's a neutrophil. Woohoo! And so we're starting to get into a thinner area again, so I think I'll move over again.
Not a bad idea.
A little bit thicker of an area. Maybe we'll find something else interesting.
Fingers crossed for a mono. Lymph.
Not a mono, but
yeah. So this one, everyone watching right now is seeing my bald head get closer to the camera.
It's all right. I do this too.
So yeah, as soon as Melissa came to the cell, I was like, closer inspection. But yeah, I agree. This is a lymph. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lymph.
Wanted it to be a mono though.
But it's got granules. It's got those Neutrophil granules in there. So there's one here. There's a bunch of them. So now that I've drawn a few, let me clear so you can see.
But I want it to be something else.
But it's great because it's spready. It has a lower NC ratio, right? It's got more cytoplasm.
True.
So this is an easy one to confuse with a mono.
True. Yeah, that's true. That like a resting lymph would probably rarely be confused with a mono, but it's these fellas, right? And the fact that they exist.
Yeah, the little more cytoplasm, but again, it's really clear outside of those azurophilic granules, whereas monos are gonna look almost more like gritty with that sandy appearance to them. And then this nucleus is actually it's not pleomorphic, but you see it's not even all the way around. It's got little like flows and differences to it than we've seen, and that makes it look more mono-y, but the chromatin again is still lymphy.
Yeah, agreed. Too thick.
At least we found something different.
Lymph.
Gold.
Heck yeah.
We struck gold.
And yeah, and we struck the most mono that mono had ever monoed. Like this is, yeah, this has a lot of good things to point.
This mono.
It's probably a good one to snap a photo of.
Picture taking.
So vacuoles. We talked about seeing vacuoles in the neutrophil.
Yep.
But mono's like the king of vacuoles, aren't they?
They are. Absolutely. Lots of vacuoles. So the presence of vacuoles is not unique to monos, but we see them a lot in monos. When you see this many vacuoles, it's really more of a characteristic of a mono. Monoid, right. Pleomorphic nucleus, that gritty kind of cytoplasmic features that we were talking about before.
I should be very disciplined and I should be looking at the nucleus first, right? Because that's the most important characteristic to look at in a cell. But sometimes I'm tempted and the vacuoles just punch me in the face. But yeah, maybe we should talk about the nucleus and the chromatin a little bit. Yep. How would you describe it to a student, to our audience?
So I usually describe it as that lacy pattern, right? That's how all textbooks will describe it to you. But then I always go into like actual lace having that very fine, not quite even. It's almost like a subtle jaggediness. And I feel like that's what the chromatin patterns look like. They're finely woven through the nucleus subtly, like very not bright white, the way that we see in clumpy neutrophils. It's more of like an off subtle white. And then it's not even, it's a nice kind of like squiggly line all throughout. That's generally how I describe monochromatin patterns.
And then our shape, we see the textbooks also like to use pleomorphism, right? Like it's just owing itself to the different shapes and conformations the nucleus can kind of take. And we kind of have the horseshoe. The little bit you gotta almost like it's a creative, yeah,
almost like a heart.
it's a very mono heart. Very abnormal, irregular.
Looks like I drew the heart. Me and my terrible drawing.
And then cytoplasm is like a pale blue, yep. blue gray, usually very textured, gritty. Yay. Well, that makes me happy.
We found a mono.
Yes, this video can die happy because we found the mono.
Well, let's just finish the rest of the leg and then we'll finish this video.
Sure.
See if we can find anything else interesting. Lymph.
Neutrophil. I was about to get cocky. I was going to put $20 on the next cell was a lymph. I'm glad I didn't open my mouth. And if we can, the filament connecting the lobes. Yeah. What an awesome filament.
It's right here. It's a really nice looking filament. So I drew it. Now let me clear it. And now you can see the filament underneath.
Mm-hmm. Very fine.
Actually, let's take a picture of that one too.
Yeah.
Another gold.
Another mono.
Another nice
cool.
Mm-hmm. Same features, and it's almost got the horseshoe shape again in this one.
Yep.
Not quite as nice, but it's like, oops, I gotta get my little drawing guy back. Like this. Oh no, it says no. It says no. Like this. Yep. I keep drawing hearts, not horseshoes, but
you heart hematology. I mean, what can we say?
Yeah, so it's got the horseshoe, it's got the lacy pattern in the chromatin, it's got the vacuoles in the cytoplasm, the gritty color. blue-gray. This was a little bit more blue than the last one.
True. Another thing about the mono is the NC ratio, usually about equal parts, equal volume, cytoplasm, nucleus. But this one breaking the rule a little bit. But you know, I like rule breakers though. I like the rebels.
Cells frequently do break the rules because they don't.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Thank you, Modern.
Got a little.
Yeah. Limpy, and look at this little arm stretched out here. Right, it's got a little pseudopod there. Let me clear now.
Another very descriptive, the pseudopod. Yep. Another word in the arsenal to describe cells.
It's a lymph. Again, he's a regular lymph. He's slightly annoyed, not as annoyed as the last one, but he's not quite reactive. You want to see the smudge?
Smudge. Very good. This is something you're going to see, and you can't count it reliably. There might be some very edge cases where we count a smudge, but generally speaking, keep moving.
Yeah. And smudges can be important in certain disorders to recognize that they're there or to say that they're present, but not one like this. Not one smudge cell. You're going to see one smudge cell on almost every diff you do.
Yep.
And just to clarify, a smudge cell was a cell that became a smudge because of that smear making process.
Mm-hmm. And the cytoplasm is basically ruptured, and you just have a freestanding kind of nucleus just there.
Yeah. Oh, and just as a side note, we have another platelet on top of a red cell over there.
Our beautiful halo around it.
Yep. Chugga chugga. Woo.
Neutrophil. Lymph.
Another lymph. Lymph empty. Another lymph. Another neutrophil. Another lymph. Another one. All right. Well,
Think we hit bedrock?
think we hit bedrock. Think they're mostly lymph. So this was a normal, but it had more lymphs than anything. So most likely a pediatric normal specimen.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the normal cells are still going to look normal. So the limbs still were normal, the monos, the neutrophils. We didn't see any eos or basos, but that's not unusual.
Right. They're quite rare. We could do several diffs, all normal patients, and not encounter any basos or eos. But if you'd like to see an eo or a baso, we'll remember to leave a link in the description to our normal WBC video, where we kind of have photos of each type, kind of go through things. But that was fun.
It was. Thanks for watching.
Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you'd like notifications whenever we post a new video, and feel free to reach out to us on social media or via email with comments or suggestions about future content. Thanks.